In March 2022 in Puerto Rico, a bishop was removed from his diocese, Bishop Daniel Fernández Torres. And this particular bishop made headlines for the following statement that he made during COVID. And I think it's important that we remember these men who stood up. In a letter, the bishop said that it is legitimate for faithful Catholics to have doubts about the safety and efficacy of a vaccine, given that what the pharmaceutical companies or drug regulatory agencies say is in no way a dogma of faith. And the safety and efficacy are relevant and necessary data for moral judgment, he explained. He was one of the few bishops that actually put his neck on the line against the COVID treatments during COVID. And whatever your debate is on the vaccines, which we weren't allowed to speak about on this platform at that time. So when that bishop was removed, it was very difficult to actually have a proper debate about this in the church. You couldn't, because you put it on Facebook, it was taken down. You put it on YouTube, you were banned. It's only now, since Trump has returned to the White House, that these global media companies like Google and Facebook and X, well, under Elon Musk, have allowed a free discourse, a free discussion here on this. As many people know, I, during COVID, had signed up to take the Pfizer vaccine. I had signed up. They had a big vaccination centre here, not far from me. I had studied all the data. I had listened to different people. And I said, look, given, I mean, this is how gullible I was really at the end of the day. But I suppose I listened to everybody, and I was really brainwashed into taking the Pfizer, signing up to take the Pfizer vaccine. I'm just being honest with people. And I mean, there was a massive push here in Ireland. Massive push. But I suppose I had to disclose two people that I knew that had been men in their 50s that were Legionaries of Christ, had died from COVID during that time. So people that, in my age bracket, people that I would have known had died from COVID. So it wasn't like this was some disease you could just ignore, And as a father with kids, I felt a responsibility to really ensure my health and to look at all the evidence, to look at, the pros and cons of this vaccine. So I'm just being transparent here about the thing. But my wife, who's older than me by 2 years, because they were giving out the vaccine by age groups in Ireland, right? So she took it first. My wife is far healthier than I am. And as soon as she took it, she had her whole arm was bruised, black and blue, a photo of it. And she started to get sick. She started to lose balance. It was impacting her balance, and she was saying to me at the time, that was after the first one. Okay. And her mother was ill at the time in Poland, and you needed the vaccine to be able to travel easily. Otherwise, you'd have to be getting testing, etc., etc. So she didn't feel like she wanted to get it, but she got it anyway. And I was just saying to my wife, look, this isn't normal. Like, this isn't normal that you're feeling so ill after a vaccine. I've never seen this happen before. My brother took the AstraZeneca one, and he wouldn't take another one after that. So he just took the first dose. He was up north, and he was ill after that as well. As a family, we were just discussing, this is a normal that you would take a vaccine and feel so ill. Feel really, really rotten. But again, we weren't allowed to talk about this on social media. You couldn't put up a video on YouTube or Facebook or X at the time. There was a complete media lockdown on discussing this. There was one narrative. These are safe. There's no problems here. Nothing to talk about. Just take it. Don't question it. Take it. Anyway, my wife took the second one. And then she said to me, Robert, don't go and get it. Don't go and get that vaccine. And she wouldn't let me or the children take it. She said, there's something not right about this. And in a normal, democratic, free speech society, you'd be able to talk about the side effects of drugs. I mean, there's tons of people talking about the side effects of Ozempic. And there's no media clampdown. No, Ozempic's safe. Take Ozempic, blah, blah, blah. There's no media clampdown on discussing the pros and cons and side effects and benefits of Ozempic, this weight loss drug, or any other. Imagine back in the day if there was a drug that was causing birth defects in children. I'm drawing a blank there, but it was a very famous case at the time. This was in the 1960s. A drug that was given to help with the morning sickness that women had, and it ended up causing many, many birth defects. Now, I mean, imagine if you weren't allowed to talk about the side effects of that and you kept giving it. I mean, it just didn't make sense that we weren't allowed to have an open and honest debate about this. And at the same time, in the Vatican, they were giving this vaccine. Pope Francis had met a few times with the CEO of Pfizer, Burla. He had given space in the Vatican Hall to administer the vaccine, and he pushed it. His workers had to take it. The Swiss guards, 3 Swiss guards, were fired because they refused to take this treatment. It was really a turning point for me on that specific point. I said, why are we not allowed to have a simple, scientific, rational conversation on this? We should be able to have a free and honest conversation on this. There were some churches not allowing unvaccinated to go to Mass. It really divided and polarized the world during that time. And if we're not allowed to have free and open debate about these things, we live in a dictatorship. If you want to know who rules over you, ask who you can't criticize. We lived in a dictatorship, and Pope Francis was the biggest advertiser for Big Pharma during COVID. Now, in the midst of that, we have a bishop, Bishop Daniel Fernández Torres, who, did he cover up abuse? Was he abusing minors? No. He just, in good conscience, objected to this dictatorship. You should be able to question what is put into your body. You should be able to have a free and open debate about how they're developed, how they were tested. Because, if we look back into the European Parliament, which had a debate on these vaccines, and people will remember this, they brought in the representatives of Pfizer and said, well, did you do testing on the vaccine that it stops transmission? And they didn't test that it stops transmission. They admitted this. And yet we were led to believe that it was an act of charity to take this, because if you took it, you would not get COVID and you would not transmit the virus. It was a load of nonsense what they were telling us. They were making claims that didn't actually exist in reality. And again, we weren't allowed to say this on YouTube. There was one narrative pushed down, and the Pope helped push down this narrative. And to say that there hasn't been injuries from these treatments, well, you can't say there hasn't been injuries. There has been injuries. People have got them. They've ended up with myocarditis and pericarditis, strokes, blood clots, etc. These are verifiable facts now from the mRNA vaccines. I mean, anybody after 5 years will realize this. Look, I am not an expert in this area, but I think when, on a personal level, you take a treatment and you observe somebody that you've lived with for 20 years in the same house, in the same bed, you know your wife, and then all of a sudden she's not well because she came home after taking an mRNA vaccine, and you can see she's not well. She says she's not well. The normal course of events, guys, would be say, okay, you've taken a treatment which has an adverse reaction. Don't take it again. That's a normal thing that any sane doctor would say. Okay, you've taken a treatment and it's had an adverse event. Don't take it again. They were mandating people to go back and take it. That's how brainwashed we were. People were getting sick. They were getting the side effects. Their faces were drooping, like my cousin did. I mean, when I just look back at my family and the side effects that we were speaking about, I said, the normal course of events, when you have side effects from a treatment, you don't take it again. If you have a side effect from an antibiotic, you don't go taking that antibiotic again. It's like we shoved common sense out the window during COVID. And sadly to say, the Pope was the biggest promoter of the dictatorship, not allowing a free discourse of ideas, firing his own employees because they wouldn't take the vaccine. And you can see I'm a bit aggrieved by this experience, because instead of a church being a church for, to do what it's supposed to do, it ended up becoming an arm of the UN, the WHO, the Religious Affairs Department to promote the vaccine. We entered very, very dangerous territory, unprecedented territory, without free exchange of ideas on basic human rights of what I get to put into my body. I should have the right to refuse it and not have my job removed, or not being able to impact to travel, and not being able to, etc., etc. We should be able to make our own free choices about these things. This is just one incident. This was really, really one of the turning points. And I said to myself, this isn't normal. I mean, Rupenik, under the previous papacy, the whole time during the previous, gets a free pass. That's a reality. His art hung in the papal apartment to the very last day of Pope Francis' life. And yet, a good bishop who raised proper moral objections about something that wasn't dogma of faith gets fired. And really remained a man of integrity and dignity over these last number of years. I do hope the next papacy rehabilitates this good bishop. I pray that they do. I pray whoever sits on the seat of St. Peter comes in and rehabilitates that good bishop and returns him to his diocese. Of all of the men that needed to be removed from their diocese, he certainly wasn't one of them. A voice of reason when we were not allowed to have discussion. That's who he is. I could say a lot more, but as I said, it annoyed me so much at the time. Obviously, I would have done this video 3 years ago on YouTube. Just so you're aware, it's not like, people are saying, well, Robert, what a week to be doing this video. I would have done this video 3 years ago. But again, you weren't allowed to have a discussion 3 years ago on this, were we? Or 4 years ago, or 5 years ago. Well, 4 years ago. Were we allowed? Again, there was one narrative allowed. And that's a very dangerous situation to be in. That's a dictatorship. That's like living under communism. One narrative. It's like in China. One narrative. When you end up in that situation, that's when the greatest horrors are allowed to be committed. We need to have a free and open debate. And again, any other treatment or medication that has side effects, you should be allowed to voice them and say, well, look, I've had the first treatment. I'm really ill after it. The doctor should say, well, okay, don't go and get the second one. But no, common sense out the window. No, just go off and take the second one. Where did we end up, guys? Where did we end up in humanity? Anyway, pray for Bishop Daniel, and I pray that the next Pope gives justice to this poor man who was wrongfully removed from his diocese for being the voice of reason in the church when our bishops were silent. Our bishops were silent. And many of them objected, but they weren't men enough to stand up and say, hold on a second. The church has no right to mandate something or to push something. You're not doctors. You're not medical professionals. And all of a sudden, you become the religious affairs department of the WHO and Big Pharma and Pfizer. Am I not the voice of reason when I say these things? Is this not common sense? Pray for the church during this time and pray for a holy pope, a man of God, a man in union with God that can speak to us about God and their experience of God. Christ is the way. He is not one way or a privileged way or one way among many. He is the way, and he speaks of the Father. God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.